GamingBolt presents 15 craziest Resident Evil monsters that'll scare the hell out of you. If there's any series that's had a constant run of scary, grotesque, and outright bizarre monsters, it's Resident Evil. There's just something so unsettling about the bioorganic nature of these things, coupled with their murderous drive, but only a few stand at the top. Take a look at 15 of the craziest Resident Evil monsters and decide which one rules the zombified roost. Iron Maiden, Resident Evil 4. Battling regenerators is annoying enough, given their constant regenerating nature, as regenerators usually do. However, the Iron Maidens are worse. Besides finding the right place to shoot the Los Plagas parasites within them, you also have to deal with enormous spikes emerging from its body. Don't forget that creepy smile that's watching you struggle while it regenerates either. Scarmiglione, Resident Evil Revelations. Remember The Shape of Water? Imagine if the loving fishman was actually Scarmiglione, and could separate his body into two halves. Oh, and it's more Sharkman monstrosity than docile misunderstood creature. Appearing in Resident Evil Revelations as a result of experiments done with the T-Abyss virus, Scarmiglione is absolutely vicious in its demeanor. USTANAK, Resident Evil 6. What do you do about a bioorganic C-virus creation that was happy to be infected in the first place? USTANAK relentlessly pursues Jake Muller in Resident Evil 6, and to make up for its missing arm, it uses a variety of tools like a drill and a mechanical claw. Capable of taking a tremendous amount of punishment, including a mining drill to the body, USTANAK's lacking look is made up for by his sheer relentlessness. Chainsaw People, Resident Evil 4. Embodying the terror of Texas Chainsaw Massacre isn't easy, but Resident Evil 4 pulled this off with aplomb. From his very introduction to the first decapitation, the Chainsaw Man, aka Dr. Salvador, made a lasting impression. What was lurking beneath that horrifying burlap sack, to say nothing of the crazed eyes? The Chainsaw Sisters were even worse, with their poorly bandaged, disfigured faces and faster swinging of chainsaws. Licker, Resident Evil 2. A T-virus monster that was my man before the phrase was even a thing, the Licker is almost as iconic as the zombie at this point. That's because its first appearance, all exposed brain and emaciated skin, scared the ever-loving soul out of us. Throw in the fact that it could tear through either character's torso with its tongue, and you'll know why it remains one of our greatest fears. Nemesis, Resident Evil 3. By today's sentient BOW standards, the Nemesis may not seem all that special. However, at the time, the idea of a tyrant-like being armed with a rocket launcher and capable of dodging attacks was alarming, to say the least. It wasn't even that the Nemesis was tough, but that it pursued you almost everywhere, even if you ran. The fact that it finally fell to a massive railgun is a testament to its nigh unstoppable nature. Gravedigger, Resident Evil 3. Mutate a millipede with tons of T-virus and you get the Gravedigger. The result of a secondary infection, the Gravedigger has a number of spiky protrusions and an enormous mouth with, well, you guessed it, lots of teeth. Though it's not exactly the most threatening creature, the Gravedigger is still fairly grotesque in its own right. U3, Resident Evil 4. What did make for a terrifying human-slash-insect-slash-reptile hybrid thing was the U3 in Resident Evil 4. The upper torso is that of a mutated human while the lower is a four-legged insect, and that's before the Plaga emerges from its back with mantis-like arms. The U3 was especially terrifying due to Leon navigating a suspended series of rigs, dropping one after another to evade it. Nyx, Resident Evil Outbreak, File Number 2. A Nyx, UBCS team, and Tyrant walk into a bar. They all leave together, but two as arms. Corny as that sounds, Nyx is a great example of body horror in the Resident Evil franchise. Upon its release, it absorbs the above two entities, literally wielding a mass of corpses as its right arm while its bulbous body attacks the player. Nosferatu, Resident Evil, Code Veronica. The origin story of Nosferatu is rather sad. Originally the father of Alfred and Alexia Ashford, he was infected by the T-Veronica virus and spent 15 years confined to a solitary chamber. Upon release, Nosferatu's bound appearance with a scythe-like appendage emerging from his back painted a rather dismal picture of a monster. By the end, his death felt more like a mercy killing than anything else. Queen Leech, Resident Evil 0. Created as a result of experiments on a leech, the Queen Leech actually absorbed the memories of Dr. Marcus from Resident Evil 0. From there, it believed that it was Marcus, and even took his younger self as its form. The Queen Leech has a few disturbing forms, ranging from a bipedal mass of tentacles to a crawling mass of ickiness. William Birkin, Resident Evil 2. There's probably a book on parenting out there somewhere that advises against experimenting on yourself and using your daughter as a viable virus carrier. Guess who forgot to read it? William Birkin would evolve into being known as G thanks to the G virus and played a part in the Raccoon City incident. G goes through numerous transformations, including a ribcage as a mouth, a four-legged animal with eyes on its back, and an enormous blob-like creature. Bitores Mendez, Resident Evil 4. In a game where all kinds of insanity is afoot from the first villager's yell, Bitores Mendez seemed relatively more in control. Then, his upper torso separates from his lower with centipede-like segments connecting the two and various Las Plagas tendrils emerging from his shoulders. Oh, and he's got claws instead of nails in case you thought all the boxes weren't checked. Dogs, Resident Evil series. Almost as iconic as the zombies, the dogs possessed incredible speed and could easily tear apart their victims. Being overwhelmed by a few of these dogs was terrifying, and later iterations made them even crazier with the Colmillos and Azules. The former in Resident Evil 4 saw parasites emerge from the beast's back. The latter's head split open to reveal fangs and enormous teeth besides a gaping razor-filled mouth, and you thought they were terrifying as simple undead canines. Skagdead, Resident Evil Revelations and Resident Evil Revelations 2. What's worse than a host carrying the T-Abyss virus? That same host experiencing a second mutation. This occurred with Skagdead, and the result was certainly something. There are lumps all over its body, a human being on its shoulder that actually proclaims its innocence, and what seems to be a mutated buzzsaw as its right arm. That's not taking into account its giant gaping head with numerous teeth. If you ever had to see any grotesque being before dying, make room on that bucket list for Skagdead.
And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.